Hey, Mavericks. Welcome to episode 43. This is the anniversary episode of the Spark+Victory podcast. I'm so excited. It's been a year and it's gone by so quickly and kind of slowly at the same time, right? Raise your hand if you agree that's what 2019 has been for you. Super fast and at times like, is it over yet? So I was thinking about what I wanted to do to make this episode special. And one of the things that I came up with was to make it a video episode. So you're probably listening to this on a podcast app, but if you're curious to see me in action, you can go to sparkandvictory.com/43 and I'll have the video up there and you can see me waving to you. That's what I'm doing right now. This is kind of fun. So today's episode, I want to share the top lessons, like the biggest lessons that I've learned in the last year of launching a podcast. So they're not necessarily specific to a podcast, but for me, it's specific to like a big project like this. So things, if you're planning to launch a big project like a podcast, or if you have launched a big project and you want to, recommit to it, these are the lessons that have been really valuable for me this year. Now, before I dive into that, I have some news I'm excited to share. I just completed my certification for NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and timeline therapy. So these are all techniques now that I am incorporating into the work that I do with business owners in coaching. This is so fantastic. If you have never heard of neuro-linguistic programming, I had heard a little bit about it. It was always one of those things. I think the term is so sexy. Neuro-linguistic programming. That sounds so fancy and cool and smart. And like it probably works, right? Well, newsflash, it does. It totally works. It's amazing. So when I finally decided to dig into a little bit, I was hooked instantly because for me, so NLP in a nutshell is the language of our unconscious mind. So 95% of our brain is operating in the unconscious mind. So it's our default behaviors, our beliefs, the habits that we have, the things that we do, like brushing our teeth, driving, like, the activities that we have that we don't ever really think about. And then 5% of our brain is used consciously. So that's the intentional thoughts. That's the overrides that we do. Like when you have a negative thought and you're like, nope, not doing that. I'm going to think this positive thought instead. That's using your conscious mind. That is, your conscious mind does the decision making. It does the actual goal setting. So when you're thinking like, what do I want and how am I going to get it? Those are the questions that you ask your conscious mind. But your unconscious mind, we call it the goal getter. It's the one that is going to determine whether or not you follow through on those things or whether or not you change behaviors or you continue to follow the same behaviors over time. So you can imagine knowing how to speak to and work with in a really like fluid and loving and energized way with your unconscious mind is amazing. It's so powerful. And so now I'm really, really looking forward to having these new tools that I'm working with my clients. So yeah, that is where I've been recently. I've been head down in the books and practicing and, working with people and working it into my business and figuring out how that's going to look for 2020. It's so good. I love the end of the year. I don't know about you, but it's one of my favorite times of the year because I really enjoy seeing the progress that we made, but really I enjoy making plans for the future. I enjoy like feeling into what my future self is going to experience. And that's something that it revs me up. Like I love being future focused. And so this is a really cool time of year for me where not only do I get to do that and like really think about like, what is this next year going to be and how am I going to support myself and my goals, but now having new skill sets to add to that, it just like solidifies so much of the work that I do and the work that I want to be doing in this coming year. So it's amazing. So exciting stuff, right? If you have questions, if you're curious about NLP or timeline therapy or hypnotherapy, those two things, timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, are really amazing tools for releasing the blocks that you have in your unconscious mind. So in a nutshell, I'll probably do more podcast episodes more specific to these things, but our body stores, our unconscious mind is where memories are stored, and it stores them essentially throughout our entire body. So our body is like the data storage center, and it locates memories. So we have a sense of time in relation to our body. And so for a lot of us, it's like, if you watch the video, you can see me with my arms out. It's like we see time, or we experience time, like future and past and now, in relation to our body. And so when events happen where certain beliefs are created, or when negative emotions, when we first experience that in a profound way, in a way that would then impact us and the ripple effect into our future, our body has that memory stored in a certain location. So those timeline therapy essentially brings us back in the unconscious mind. It brings us back to that moment so we can dissociate from that memory that feels really powerful and really triggering, and not have the intensity of that. So we can learn everything. We don't change the past, but we can learn everything that happened from it in a way that feels like you're looking bird's eye view. So again, I'm on the video if you can see me, but you get a bird's eye view from it instead of like being down in the event. So for a lot of business owners, there's beliefs around money, or beliefs around sales, or beliefs around partnership. I've been hearing this a lot, like whether it's business partners or life partners, where it's like a sense of, I can't count on anybody. I don't know how to grow my business because I can't trust anybody to love this thing as much as I do. So it's a lot of things like that where we're able to actually go back and figure out exactly where that started, and in relation to your body, where you feel that, and we remove it so that you're not fighting an uphill battle, essentially. So the work you're doing in your conscious mind, setting goals, taking lots of action, that you're not fighting against something under the current that is holding you back or keeping you feeling stuck. So that was my short version. As I continue to talk about it, I think I will be able to articulate it more and more. But yeah, hopefully that's something that is piquing your curiosity, because it's super exciting to me. So another thing I want to talk about just before I jump into these lessons is one of the technologies that we use in NLP is called anchoring. And anchoring is an experience where, like, we have anchors all throughout our day. A stop sign is a good example of an anchor. So it's something that triggers a behavior, or a feeling or an emotion, and a stop sign hopefully triggers your behavior of stopping, right? That's the goal anyway. So in NLP, an anchor is creating an intentional way to like rev up a set of emotions that you want to feel. So it's essentially like installing a feeling that you can access very quickly. So if you're watching the video, let me make sure that I'm on screen here. Yeah. Okay. If you're watching the video, this is one of my anchors. And for me, this is called a resource anchor. So this is where when I want to feel like a surge of power and creativity and inspiration and confidence and determination, like I just want to feel like a lot of good juju. This is an anchor that I've created for myself that makes that feeling, that is actually neurologically wired, so that when I do this, it tells my brain to release those hormones and the thoughts and the emotions that go along with it. So one cool idea that I had, I think this is a cool idea, is that business owners, a lot of people have a really hard time celebrating the wins, the accomplishments that they have, whether they're big or small. But even today, I got a message, or a couple of days ago, I got a message from a client who got interviewed and published in a major publication. Like, this thing is probably going to get 1 billion views. And she sent it to me and she was like, "This is kind of cool, right?" I was like, "What? Kind of cool?" Yeah, it's just kind of cool. It's all right. It's freaking amazing. And I think so many of us are just not good at celebrating those wins and feeling that excitement in our bodies. And that is truly, those are the emotions that propel us forward. Those are the emotions that, it's like our cheerleading squad. It's the ones that are like, keep going, like do more of that. You want that as much as you possibly can. And so I had this idea to create an anchor for yourself throughout the course of the year. So for 2020, this is a challenge if you choose to accept it. I would like you can use, like I use Google Calendar. So I'm just thinking that it's a really simple, every time you have a win, and so I want you to start getting like really excited / lenient with what you consider a win. Like celebrate things, like really allow yourself to feel the goodness of having accomplished something that you wanted, or something that maybe you didn't know you wanted, but it feels really good. Let yourself feel that and experience that. And then I want you to create a little like calendar event. So for me in Google Calendar, I just make an event and say, for my client, let's say, published on realtor.com. And then set the date of that event, like pick one date that you want at the end of the year. And so just let's say December 18th. So published, like put win, published on realtor.com, and then set the date and notification for December 18th, 2020. And so all through the year, every time something happens where you feel like that's a win for yourself, you create this little event, you set it on the same day, and then guess what? December 18th, 2020, you are going to get bombarded with all of the amazing accomplishments that you've had through the course of the year. And it takes a few seconds of your day in the moment, and do it while you're like jumping up and down, being super excited. Be excited, and then create your anchor, and then you will get that notification on December 18th, and it's going to feel so amazing. So tell me if you are going to try this. If you do it, I definitely want to hear from you on the day that you set, because it's going to feel awesome. You're going to feel like a total rock star, and it will for sure inspire you to evaluate and plan for the future, and and ask yourself the question of what's next? What else can I create? Which I think is the most beautiful question we could ask ourselves. All right, so that is my NLP in a nutshell. Let's dive into the lessons that I have learned this year from launching a podcast, or for you, maybe just launching a big project, something that you want to create. All right, so first thing, as I mentioned earlier, I'm calling this episode Give It a Year. So lesson number 1 is that if it's important, give it a year. So one of the things that I used to really do for myself, well, I'll start by saying, when I decided to do the podcast, when I knew that I was for sure committed to doing it, I decided to give it a year. And the reason for that was I have had a lot of experience. I do a lot of business planning with business owners, and we do it quarter by quarter. So essentially 3 months at a time. And I think that there is value in those things, in those shorter term, like mile markers sometimes, or the shorter term commitments, because they are bite-sized, because it's something that you can like wrap your head around. It doesn't feel too long. You don't feel like you're overcommitted. Like there's a lot of good feelings that come along with short commitments. And if you're going from never making commitments to making commitments, maybe making a 3-month or a quarterly commitment is a good idea. But if it's something that's meaningful to you, I want you to give it a year. And the truth of the matter is that if you, like at any given time throughout the course of a year, it's going to be 50-50 whether or not you feel like this is a good idea or a terrible idea. And if you allow yourself, like this is planning for your success ahead of time. I knew that in December when I launched the podcast, if I had told myself I could quit in March, there's a 50-50 chance I would have quit in March. Now, truthfully, in March, I was still like, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life. I totally want to do it. But in July, I didn't feel that way. In July, I felt like this is a lot of work. It's expensive. Like it's not directly like getting me the return on investment, if that's how I'm choosing to look at it. Like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of mind drama that comes up with stuff like this. And so I just knew that I couldn't allow my emotions in the moment to let me decide whether or not my commitment was worthy. And so I think it's important to commit to something for a year, and you can recommit then a year at a time or 5 years at a time. Here's another fun one. David and I, my husband, have a 5-year at a time marriage commitment. We've had this from the beginning. It was kind of a joke, but not really. And the thing is like we decided in our relationship from day one that our relationship was going to be based on wanting to be together. Like we would we had common goals, we had dreams together, we knew we wanted to build a life together and spend our lives together, but we knew that that wasn't going to work if we didn't always want to be there. And so the 5-year commitment for us is our chance to really say, like, how have we grown together? What do we want next? It's really like that review and evaluate kind of period where we get to look at, like, how are things going? What's changed? And in between those times, there's no out. Like, we're not, like, shit's going to come up. Bad things are going to happen, or things that feel bad. There's going to be times when we're totally not on the same page, when we, like, don't want to sleep in the same room or, like, be in the same room, right? But if you allowed yourself to decide on a daily basis if you wanted to be in a marriage or not, you would be all over the damn place. So that's why you make a lifelong commitment. And so for him and I, it was a 5-year at a time commitment. We've been married for 11 years and together for 13. So we've made a few commitments. It's been good. But that is kind of the same concept here, where I think having the commitment, the longer term commitment, is the thing that helps you continue to show up even when you don't want to. And I just think that, especially in the beginning of something, that having that initial long-term push is the way to ensure that you're going to continue to show up for it and not let yourself off the hook. Okay, lesson number 2. It's not worded like a lesson, but it is. So it's support. You're either supporting yourself or you're sabotaging yourself. And put another way, it's like, if you are 100% in support of you, your happiness, your health, your growth, if you are 100% in support of your goals, the business that you have, the way you want to grow it, the person you're going to become as a leader, a business owner, of, how you're going to show up in your personal life and balance the business. If you are 100% in support of that, awesome. If you are 99% in support of that, you are sabotaging yourself. I think this is super powerful. But I can look back at all of the experiments that I've done. So this has been a year of experimentation for me. And all of the things that I've done, that I've tried, where I could look at it and say, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. There have been a lot. I think actually more of those have happened this year than things where I've been like, that was even better than I thought. Or that was exactly what I thought. I think there have been more things that I would consider to be not my favorite outcome. But every single time I can look back at those and find exactly the moment where I sabotage myself. And my flavor of sabotage usually is self-doubt. That's the number one thing, is where I start to, like, get in my head, talk myself out of things, tell myself that, it's not worth it anyway, or that it's already being done. What else do I do? I say, like, I don't know enough yet. I'm not ready to do it. I need to learn more. I need more experience. I need, all of those things. So that's my personal flavor, but tell me if you can relate to this, of sabotage. And I think what I really do see now is, like, I can find those moments in, like, the thread of that and everything that happened from that point. So there was the point where I had the idea, I set the goal, I created the plan, I began to take action, I committed to the plan, to doing the thing, and then I was all in. I was working on my belief, I was taking the action, I was being the person that I wanted to be, showing up how I wanted to show up, and then the doubt would creep in, and that is the sabotage point. That is the moment where, again, video, if you can see me, where I'm, like, on trajectory, and that's the moment where I just went off. Sometimes it was off by 1%, but that takes you in a totally different direction. Sometimes it was off by 95%. I don't know. But it's exactly those moments I could see all of the ripple effect of that sabotage playing out over and over and over again. And I've seen it so clearly now in so many different ways. Like, my own examples are the group program that I launched. The first time that I launched it, I sabotaged myself for a good, like, 4 months before I saw that pattern, got out of that pattern and recommitted and like effectively started over. And then I carried that belief through the entire thing. And that was amazing. Power thinking was so good the first time around because I had zero sabotage. I was 100% all in for that. Then the second time I did it, I started out with a little bit of false confidence, which you've heard me talk about in the podcast before. And because of that, because I wasn't actually like totally rooted in who I was talking to, what it was for, yeah, I'll probably do like a debrief on that at another point. But I can go back now and find the exact moment where I sabotaged myself and every single thing that happened from there. I mean, I will say my experience, because I have the tools that I have, was a lot of like sabotaging, seeing it, getting back on track, sabotaging, seeing it, getting back on track. So I did a lot of that, like starting and stopping. But then in the grand picture of things, I would call that sabotage, right? So I think it's a muscle that we build. Is like the practice, the thing that we practice when you're able to start really seeing like, how am I sabotaging this project? And then get yourself back on course. And then when you fall off again, you get yourself back on course. And so over the course of time, of course, you're ultimately going to get to the end that you want and get to a place where you are 100% in support of yourself. And for some of us, that's just a longer learning process, right? But if I'm specifically looking at, let's say, the second round of power thinking as like not working the way that I thought it would work, the number one reason is because I kept sabotaging myself and having to like come back to center, start over again, do it again. And I just didn't do that enough times. I didn't carry my support and my belief through more often than I was sabotaging myself in that case. So that's what I recommend. I think, starting to see that perspective on things, like if you want something, you need to decide that you are 100% in support of yourself and that sabotage is not allowed. And to be willing to, notice it when it's coming up and see that you're doing it, get yourself back on track because you need 100% support. I also think that speaks to having 100% support in the way that you need it. So if you identify that you need a coach to support you in the process, if you identify that you need a community to support you in the process, like really being willing to invest in the things that are going to contribute to your support. Because if you think that you can do something on your own, but you keep getting in your own way, and you're not willing to invest in having the support that's going to help you push through those things and get to the next level, then you are sabotaging yourself. So I think that's important to know. Okay. Lesson number 3, confidence is a byproduct of failure, not success. Okay, let me say it again. Confidence is a byproduct of failure, not of success. On a few of the podcast episodes this year, I have said I want to make a line of t-shirts with really good phrases on them. I think this is one of those. I would love to have a t-shirt that says confidence is a byproduct of failure. Because the truth is that we build confidence by taking action, by getting experience, but we build way more confidence. If you really break down what is confidence, confidence is knowing that you can handle anything and that you're going to nail it, right? So you can take lemons and turn them into lemonade. And when you know, especially in your area of expertise, when you know that you can handle anything that comes your way, you feel massively confident. And when you don't know that you can handle anything that comes your way, you have a lot of sabotage. You have a lot of self-doubt. You have a lot of inconsistency and back and forth. And when you get successes in those experiences, it maybe builds a little bit of confidence. It does build confidence because you are getting more and more experience with it. But success feels very flat. If I could paint a picture here, success is sort of like a flat emotion. And failure is a very colorful, saturated emotion. So I'm thinking in color right now. So when you have, like, I'll give the example of when I get, let's say, testimonials, or when people share the feedback or share the podcast, or leave reviews or send me messages that they love the podcast. I love getting those, you guys. Let me be super clear. I love those. They make me feel super happy. And that's what I would consider a success. But they don't actually develop my skill any further. They don't make me feel more like, now that I've had over, I don't know, 100, like, let's say just over 100. I don't actually have any idea how many things like that, how many messages I've gotten. But the more, like, after a dozen of those, it doesn't actually move you to a new level of confidence, right? Like, it's sort of, you sort of like max out at what other people's feedback, or what things, when things work, like how good that can make you feel. But failure is a very saturated, colorful, vibrant, like energetic, like negative energetic feeling that really like resonates through our entire body. And when you overcome that, when you have that experience and then you do something, the next move that you make, you can handle it. You know that you can overcome it. You maybe even know exactly what to do to fix it. And then you feel so much more confident. So that is a growing tool for you. And so I hear people saying, like, how do I get, like, episode 22 was, how do I get my confidence back? And so she was talking about having, like, building up a certain level of success in your business, totally losing confidence, and being like, I need confidence again so I can start doing my business again. And my answer was, you got to do the exact opposite thing. Like, confidence is only actually going to show up when you get yourself back out there doing the things that you're afraid to do right now. And some of them are going to be failures. Some of them are going to be moments where somebody doesn't like what you've put out, like for the podcast, when somebody critiques an episode, or when I say something that I'm listening back to it later thinking like, oh, that was so stupid, I wish I could cut that out, but I'm not going to because I'm like reworking my perfectionist tendencies. It's those kinds of things that make me so much more confident as a podcaster. When I started this podcast, this is a tangent, it was essentially scripted. And like, I would spend hours writing the content that I was going to put in a podcast episode. And most of the episodes in the beginning were interviews, right? So I only had a few minutes of airtime that I had to write for. It would take me hours to write it because I had to get it so perfect. I had to record it, re-record it. Whatever. It's kind of embarrassing now. As I built my confidence over the experience of like loosening the stranglehold that I had on how it should be and how I should sound and whether or not people are going to like me or whether or not I'm going to say something wrong, all of those things, like I built more and more confidence. And now I have in front of me, I've got a 5 lines of what I'm going to cover. And then the 4 things, the 4 lessons that I want to share. And then it says CTA. That's what I write now to make a podcast episode. And that has come from a year of building my confidence by doing a lot of things that were really uncomfortable that I looked back later and was like, that's not my favorite thing. And overall, I think it becomes a massive success. Okay. Lesson number 4 is learning to measure, evaluate, and iterate. So this is like a golden rule of business, right? We hear this a lot in business, but I want to share my personal experience with it because this has been a year where I have really, truly learned to become an observer of my life, my behavior, my thoughts, my feelings, my business, my clients, my experiences with other people out in the world, just everything, like really moving into an observer seat so that I could learn and become the person who I want to be, because anything other than that perspective was causing too much pain and frustration, if that makes sense. So I've really stepped into a place now where I'm super curious about everything. There's nothing that throws me off. Like, I do not get bent out of shape about most things. I'm human, so some things, but I don't really get like offended by things. I don't really like, I hear so many stories. I mean, this is what coaching is essentially, right? Is you talk to someone and they tell you about the problem that they have and why it's a problem and why they have it and why they can't solve it. And like, the truth is that it's all their perspective and their story. And I now can really cleanly come from a place where I'm just like, isn't it interesting that that's how you see it? Because obviously they're there because they want to change it. They want to see it differently. And so instead of having judgments about that, I'm just really curious and I'm just observing. And I don't have to buy into anybody else's version of something. I just get to see it and question it and find the learnings in it, and make something useful out of it. So in my own experience, I have learned to not be attached to the number of podcast downloads or the number of Instagram followers that I have or the number of email subscribers. Now, granted, again, I'm a human person, so I had a full-on meltdown 8 months ago about my 37 email subscribers. And I was like, this is a waste of my time. And luckily I was in a mastermind group because I knew that was a way I was going to fully support myself this year. And they were like, calm down, honey. They helped talk me off the ledge and come back to this observer place of curiosity. So I don't trip out on numbers, on metrics like that. I don't allow myself to feel really defeated over things that either don't feel, again, going back to the success versus failure, I don't allow my emotions to be the dictator of my actions when things seem like a failure or when they seem like a success. So I've just gotten really good at tracking and measuring my activities and the results from a really clean place. I am just here to learn. I've decided that it's so much more important for me to live the life I want to live, have the business I want to have, and to feel the way I want to feel than it is to obsess about what isn't right or what should be different or what should be happening. So in order to do those things, in order to have that life, that was my point. In order to have that life, I have to be willing to learn and grow from everything. And so I have to see it from a place of truth. And so the lesson, the advice that I want to give is I really want you to start seriously measuring. So whatever goals that you have, again, if you specifically have a project in mind, I want you to measure and track everything. So we call them KPIs, key performance indicators, everything that you're doing. So if it's a number of people that you want to meet every week, if it's a number of podcast interviews that you want to be on or speaking gigs that you want to have, or email subscribers, if there's a number goal like that, those are really great. If it's for me in the podcast, it was my larger goal was to build, you guys, I don't like this term, but to build my tribe. I wanted to build an audience of people who related to me and who got value from what I have to say and the way that I teach and coach. I wanted to build that kind of audience and that connection with people. And so in order to do that, I still need to track the number of email subscribers, podcast downloads, the actual feedback that I get from people. I need to track those things so I can see the progress and be able to look at episode by episode. What do I think was really strong here? What do I think wasn't or didn't make sense? Things like that. You have to be willing to look at it from a really clean place so you can say, all right, I'm just here to learn, as if someone else did it and you were just looking at their the textbook results or the printout of the results from their experience and saying okay, here's what I'm going to do with that information. And being really non-judgmental. I think the personal thing, the personal challenge that I have is I don't tend to be judgmental of others, but I tend to be very self-critical. So I have learned over the course of this year how to find and disrupt that pattern of really wanting to jump down my own throat when I don't do something right or when I don't do it the way I wanted to do it, or sometimes when I don't do it at all. I've just really focused this year on breaking that pattern and breaking that cycle, and it feels really good. So now I'm clear. I'm super committed to what I'm doing. I'm willing to look at all of it and judge none of it and just look at everything that happens as like, it's here. That activity was for me to learn and be in this exact moment. And this exact moment is where I'm going to get the learnings to move on to the next moment, which kind of brings me full circle back to NLP, because I really do feel like that kind of lightness and clarity, as much as I've been doing a lot of the cognitive work and the development on myself this year, along with the development of my business. The NLP work has allowed me to like be unattached to some of those like prime feelings of shame and guilt and frustration. Those things that like, you know, you make a lot of progress, but you still find them like popping back up. Like in my mind, it's always like the whack-a-moles, that arcade game where you like bop one on the head and then another one pops up. It's like those kinds of emotions keep popping up. And I've done all of the cognitive work to recognize them, to see them, to understand what happens when I allow myself to like go there, and to be intentional with my thoughts. But NLP has allowed me to really go in and like unlock and release my attachment to those things. So I don't have these whack-a-moles jumping up all over the place. And from a really, really clean place now, I'm able to look at everything, make my observations, make my decisions on what I want to do differently, feel really good and empowered. I fire my anchor and I step into my full self, and I'm ready to go for the next thing. So I hope this was a helpful episode for you. I'm really looking forward to your 2020. I want to know what's next for you. What do you have planned? What do you really want to accomplish in 2020? I would love to connect with you on Instagram. I'm at Lindsay Brownson. If you connect with me there, you can also, as you know, you can take a screenshot of the podcast episode and shout that out on social media. Make sure that you tag me at Lindsay Brownson so I see, but send me a message and tell me what you've got in your mind, what you really want to accomplish next year. And if there's a way that I can support you and help you in that, I would really love to do it. Another thing that I just want to leave you with is that I just launched a couple weeks ago, Aha Tuesday. So every Tuesday, I'm doing 2 mini sessions. They're called Aha sessions, where I want to help business owners break through the one thing that feels the most sticky right now. So I just think it's so important that, you know, no matter how much growth that we do, no matter what challenges we overcome, no matter what confidence we build, we always still have something that kind of like pops up and is like, hey, remember me? I'm here to hold you back. And I want to help you break through that thing. And we're going to do it super quickly in a 20-minute session. And so I'm doing 2 of these each week. You can sign up for that if you'd like an Aha Tuesday session. You can go to sparkandvictory.com/aha. That's AHA. And that will link you up to schedule yours. There's no pitch. This is not a sales call. This is just 20 minutes of coaching for you, no strings attached. I just want to like really give more value, connect with people, really hear, you know, what are the challenges that you have? How do I help you solve them? I want to build relationships and community. So that's what I'm here for. I would love for you to come and join me Aha Tuesday. Again, that's sparkandvictory.com/aha. And if you want to see this video, it's sparkandvictory.com/43. Okay, Mavericks, this has been so super fun. Thank you for joining me. It's getting dark out now. The light has changed so much. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you very soon when we launch season 4 in just a few weeks here. So stay tuned for that. Season 4 is coming up.